What is going on, guys? Eternal Wind back, and today I'm going to go ahead and cover what I feel like is one of the better beginner builds for Final Fantasy XVI. Now, I'm going to release a video for builds during the beginning, the mid, and end game for 16. And in the beginning, I'm going to go ahead and add up to Ramuh. So this could potentially have spoilers. Not so much the ones in the beginning, but the mid and end game obviously will. But let's go ahead and get right into it. So, as you can see for my gear and icons, as far as gear is concerned, obviously right now I'm at the end of Final Fantasy mode. I've beaten it, platinumed it. So I just have the best equipment that you can equip for attack and defense, but that's not really important. The only thing is you're going to want to just basically equip the strongest stuff that you have, right? For both attack and defense. Now, as far as our accessories are concerned, don't worry about the two to the right of this. You can equip anything that you want that betters your build, that betters your playstyle. The only one that I will recommend is the Berserker Ring. Now, as soon as you get to the hideaway to where you can start earning renown for your main and side quests and your hunts, once you get to 85, you will be able to unlock the Berserker Ring. I think this ring is amazing. You can obviously equip other things to further increase your attack or defense or anything that you want for like cooldown or ability power for some of your favorite abilities. But this ring not only slows down time dramatically when you do a precision dodge, but it basically puts your next 4 attacks into the limit break status. So basically allowing you to attack with limit break without actually going into it. It also allows it to where you can dodge attacks more easily subsequently after your first dodge, just because of the slowdown effect. So while not needed, I do think that this is an amazing item. Definitely not needed late game, but after doing some testing with like the stuff that increases like Giga Flare damage and shit like that, I did not find it to boost it enough. Even with full out attack damage, there was only like a 6k difference between adding like the Genji gloves, your ability to increase your attack by 32, again this is on Final Fantasy mode, and then Giga Flare damage by 10%. It was like a 6 to 10k difference, and that's only when you're obviously using Giga Flare. I just didn't find it to be as helpful or even as cool as using the Berserker Ring. Alright, now as far as the icons are concerned, again this is a beginner build. You're obviously going to unlock your access to Ifrit before Ramuh, but it doesn't unlock a feat like the Phoenix Shift, Deadly Embrace, or Blind Justice. So we just went ahead and threw these 3 on because they'll be your first 3 that you get for equipping an actual icon. Now, you can obviously change this based on your personal playstyle and preference, but in terms of beginner build, Heatwave is one of the best skills in the game, period. Obviously, when you're using this and it doesn't block a projectile, it's half as good. But man, when you do eventually block a projectile with this, especially during boss fights, not only does it slow down time, but it unleashes 4 waves, and each wave hits 2 times. It does a really nice amount of stagger damage, and it can just save you whenever a huge projectile is heading your way. I definitely recommend this. I think this is one of the better skills in the game. Obviously, with this being a beginner build, you're not going to have access to too terribly much, so I do think Heatwave is a great option. Now, Flames of Rebirth, I absolutely loved this skill, both for beginner and mid-game builds. It's got a ridiculous cooldown, but the amount of damage that it does early game once you've upgraded it is tremendous, and it allows you to just clear waves of enemies. Works really nice in building up your stagger bonus whenever you've staggered a target. It doesn't do great damage for bosses. I really just like using this to heal if you need it. Whenever you have that lighter green section of your health bar, it will heal that completely. So it's nice to have a way to restore HP while dealing damage. But this is mainly for wave clearing. You're going to be like, why in the hell do you not have ignition? With it being a beginner build, you don't have a ton of ability points. And you're going to end up having to master at least one of these Phoenix or Ifrit skills based on the way I have this set up. Obviously, you don't need to master Heatwave or Flames of Rebirth. Just upgrading them is enough to equip it on Phoenix. But to equip anything else on any of the other icons, you're going to need to have them mastered. And I think the-Wykes is probably one of the best things that you can invest in. Not only does it block up to 4 attacks, and that damage can be block 10 damage or block 2,500 damage. It doesn't matter. There are some specific boss abilities that will go through it, but that's very seldom at best. This does not seem like it does a lot of damage, but the fact that it lasts as long as it does, when you couple this with other things that attack a stagger bar or a wheel gauge, however you want to go about describing it, it's going to do a lot more for you than you think it will. And I'll show you in a little bit of a gameplay here once I get done discussing this stuff. But the-Wykes is amazing. It's also really, really good late game for when you want to cast Spoiler, Mega Flare, or even Dancing Steel, because you can get knocked out of those. Like if you don't time your precision dodge perfectly when you're using Mega Flare, you'll get knocked out of it. the-Wykes, if you have it active, it'll just take the hit, and you'll still be casting, or charging it up rather. And the same thing can be said for Dancing Steel. So if you use this beforehand, it's really, really nice. I don't necessarily use this to protect against damage, but it helps. I really like coupling this with something in the Ramuh tree, which we'll get to in a minute. I don't really like Garuda's abilities. I do like her feat with Deadly Embrace, and then since I didn't touch on it before, you only get access to these 3 in the beginning, right? Phoenix Shift is really good to teleport to enemies that are afar, like once you've done maybe a combo with Magic Burst, or unleashed a Stinger combo with Magic Burst to shoot them far away. You can teleport over to them and do a Mortal Blow, which is really nice. You can also teleport to enemies that are in the air, which again is very helpful. But Deadly Embrace, obviously what it does is it grabs enemies and pulls them to you, and then if they have a stagger bar, it will launch you in the air to where you can do some pretty cool combo stuff, combo-centric stuff with some of the later abilities like Titan. Or if there's a ton of shit going on at the ground level of the floor, you can use it up to 4 times before you start to descend. This will allow you to stay above all that chaos. But what it's really used for is once you've mid-staggered, as you see here right now, right as you stagger something with a stagger gauge to 50%, halfway mark, you can then pull them to the ground for about a 5-second duration to just unload on them. This is good to use stuff that's coming up in the Ramuh tree, as well as even casting the-Wykes, because it does have a pretty long animation startup time. But the only ability that I personally can recommend is Wicked Will. Wicked Will does really good stagger damage. And everything in the Garuda tree is meant for stagger damage, but Gouge takes too damn long to cast, even when you've upgraded it. You pretty much have to dodge out of it, or you could couple Gouge with the-Wykes and just go ham if you wanted to do that. That would work as well. Again, this synergizes very well with a lot of abilities, even Ignition if you wanted to cast this and then use Ignition, which again, I skipped. So let me go ahead and cover Ignition real quick. It's not bad. I don't think it does enough damage to bosses, and while you may be able to clear certain stuff, you only have so many abilities that you can equip, and I like Flames of Rebirth more. It has a really good cooldown, Ignition does, so you can use it much more frequently, but if you're killing enemies with it upgraded, and you're able to just couple everything up and kill them, go to the next battle and do it over and over again, you can do that. You can even swap out Heatwave if you don't feel like you're fighting enough stuff to be able to actually utilize this to its full potential. You can just replace this with Ignition, and that is perfectly fine. Again, you can tailor this to your specific playstyle. But again, as far as Garuda is concerned, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of her techniques. Rook's Gambit, I feel like the timing is much more strict than, say, like anything from Titan later on, or even Heatwave. It does do a shitload of damage if you use it properly and dodge an attack before it unleashes. But there's just, I feel like, other abilities that far better suit my playstyle, but obviously if it works for you, go for it. But Wicked Will I like because it has a very quick cast animation, and it does a lot of stagger damage. Obviously, you have to be right on top of somebody in order to use this. But if you enjoy aerial combat, this is amazing because you can just rise up in the air, do some aerial combos, knock them to the ground, and then pull them up in the air again with Deadly Embrace and just keep going ham. You can do some really cool stuff with Wicked Will, and while, again, this being a beginner build and you don't have access to a whole lot, I do think it's probably one of the better choices for Garuda. Now, as far as Ramuh is concerned, I personally think Blind Justice is a waste of time. Maybe you like it, and that's great. Utilize it. But I don't ever find myself using this. I just think it takes away from what's happening on the battlefield. It doesn't actually target fast enough. I mean, if you can target like a wide variety of enemies immediately and get it to 9 if you've leveled it up, and then just let it rip, it's free damage after that. But for me personally, I don't use this. What I have this equipped for is, again, you only have so many ability points at the beginning of the game, and you don't want to have to worry about mastering too much stuff, which again is the only reason I have this on a different Eikon, is because this is the only one I would recommend 100%. Being able to master right off the bat, and that's because this also couples with Lightning Rod so well. Lightning Rod is probably one of the best abilities in the game. This thing just shreds stagger gauges. It also does a really good job at building your stagger bonus once you've staggered somebody. Like if you cast this as soon as they get staggered and then Will the-Wykes, just standing on top of Lightning Rod with Will the-Wykes is just going to skyrocket your damage. And then if they're not staggered, using this combo together is going to get them there really quick, and in which case you can use Deadly Embrace, or if you've already used that and then you use Will the-Wykes and Lightning Rod, you're going to get them to become staggered very quickly. It's also really cool if you cast this and then use your taunt to pull enemies into hitting it, because it does double damage, I believe. Maybe even more so than that. But Lightning Rod, man, you can use this with so many things. You can use this with Giga Flare once you get it later on. You can use this with Dancing Steel, which was pretty much a staple in my build late game to get Zantetsuken at level 5. Just an all-around amazing ability. You can use it in so many different ways. You can use it offensively or defensively, and it's going to do wonders for you. Now, the last skill that I have for this beginner build is going to be Judgement Bolt, because you want to have at least one kick-ass high damage ability. And the great thing about Judgement Bolt is it does a pretty good amount of stagger damage on top of its initial damage. So if you just really need to stagger the enemy or get them to 50% quick, the cooldown on it isn't horrendous. It's not great, but it's not horrendous. So you can use this to just quickly get them to 50% or fully staggered, and then just go ham with all of your other abilities. But this is going to be the most damaging ability at this point in the game. It's a really good throughout the entire story, which is why I have recommended this for Ramuh. Again, don't need to master these, or even this. You really just need one for this build. Again, you can replace Heatwave. I don't recommend any of the other Phoenix abilities. The only other one that I would replace Heatwave with, if you don't like it and it doesn't fit your playstyle, is probably going to be ignition, and if you don't want to do that and you like something else for Garuda, you can just throw Will of the Wykes here and then put Gouge or Rook's Gambit or even Aerial Blast on Garuda. But I'm going to go ahead and play around with this for you real quick to kind of show you what this can do. Alright guys, let's go ahead and show you what this build can do. I'm going to go ahead and transition into Lightning Rod just to show you what the stagger damage with Will of the Wykes is like, which is just disgusting. Look at this. Already. And then if you need to, you can reposition Lightning Rod. And look at that stagger gauge, man. Look at that. That's just ridiculous. You go right into this, right into this. This will build your gauge a little bit faster. Cast this again, and then go right into Lightning Rod. Obviously, you can use that right at the end of your combo for even more damage. But this is just a really nice beginner build. Obviously, you can tweak this to anything that will benefit your playstyle more so. But alright guys, that's going to be it for the video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to stay up to date on all of my content. I appreciate you coming out, and I'll catch you on the next one. Deuces.